There's not much to do in jail but tell stories. Right. So, Tommy's telling me stories, I'm laughing, and I'm telling him stories. He's rolling on the floor. The third night, he says, honestly, I thought you were full of shit. I thought you were making this stuff up at yachts because my wife Googled you. It's actually true. You did all this because you have to write a book. So I was like, really? He's like, yes, write a book. I'm like, well, I don't know how to write. He goes, just write the way you speak. I was like, okay. So I tried that and it didn't work. You can't write the way you speak. It's very different. They don't translate, right?
You wrote like 100 pages in prison and you threw it away, right?
Well, what happened was I started writing like 10 pages and I showed him to Tommy. He's like, that's really awful. I'm like, well, thanks, Tommy. Tell me what you really think, right? So at first I couldn't write. It was just very dry and boring. Then I went into the prison library. But after a month of trying and failing and very frustrated, I stumbled upon the book Bonfire of the Vanities by Tom Wolfe, which I'm sure you've read, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as I started reading, I'm like, oh my God, I want to write like that. So I finished the book. Then I took out my yellow highlighter. I was a very good student in school, I was well academically. And I used this book like a textbook. And I started going through and cracking Tom Wolfe's strategy for writing. Like, how does he introduce characters? How does he describe locations? How does he create? I started noticing it was like I never even considered the word had, H-A-D. Like I was like, oh, now I know why my sentences don't make sense. Because if I want to describe the past, I got to use the word. I don't realize this stuff. There's a strategy for writing. Okay. Like I think some of the mistakes that people make in becoming successful is they forget the fact that it's typically a specialized skill set. If you want to succeed at something, you have to learn the actual skills. So I had this idea. I wanted to write a book. I have a vision. If I write this book, it could become a great thing. Okay, great. But what specialized skills do you need to know? One of them is how to write. I didn't know. So I used this book. I taught myself to write. Then my second book was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That was my second textbook.
Right.
And my writing improved dramatically because of those books. And I wrote about 100 pages, as you said. Then I ripped them up because I didn't think they were good enough. Got out of jail. Wrote 10 pages again now. And I looked at these 10 pages. It's like 2005. I'm like, wow. I'm like, I think they're pretty good. Like to me, they seem good. I never liked my writing before. And I sent it to a couple of friends, and they were all calling back, like, oh my God, it's great. I'm like, really? So I was like, all right. So I knew very casually someone was an agent. I sent them the pages, and here's the interesting part. He calls me back, and I goes, is that a joke? Did you pay Tom Wolfe to write those pages? He thought Tom Wolfe wrote the first 10 pages. Because back then, they've changed. The original 10 was like so much like Tom Wolfe. Okay. It's like if you knew Tom Wolfe, you'd say, wow, he wrote them, right? So, which I thought was a victory for my strategy, right? Anyway, and he goes, you got to stop what you're doing. He goes, you have to write this book. This book is going to be a huge success. I thought the guy was crazy, but I was just out of jail. I didn't know what to do. So what
were your options at that point?
My options were to build another business. I assumed I'd get rich again by building a business. I didn't know what it would be. Right?
You could personally trade after, but you couldn't start a securities firm. That's all out.
Exactly. I couldn't own a firm, but I could trade for myself. But to me, as a person that I'd already run Steve Madden's shoes, I built that up.
Right.
I never doubted I'd make money again. That wasn't really my worry. I knew I'd get rich at some point because I kind of was that sort of person. Right. I didn't know how, but I was tired. I was like one down. Also, when I was writing that book, even those first 100 pages, it's like almost like a lot of catharsis in there. It's like therapy, and you start seeing things about yourself. And I just made this decision. I said, let me give this a whirl. And I literally holed up in this little tiny apartment I had in Playa del Rey, California, right? And there was something about this place. It was overlooking the water. It was tiny, not expensive, great energy though. And I didn't speak to another human being for almost a year. Only my kids would come over and they say, Daddy's writing this book, Wow. And I did something pretty interesting in terms of success. So after about 20 pages in, and I now had, my age, like, this is gonna be huge. I didn't think I could finish. I never wrote before. I was like really nervous. So I went to my daughter. It was like my closest friend back then. She was really close, my daughter, right? Okay. My son was still small. I said, guess what, Chandler? She goes, what? She said, Daddy's gonna write a bestseller and become famous. Now I did that because I knew that once I told her, I would have no choice but to make it happen. I embarrassed myself. And then she goes, Mommy, and then I was screwed. And she told my ex-wife, and then I had no choice. She's like, oh yeah, sure. And then, that's what happened after that, right? So I literally holed up and I just wrote and wrote and wrote. My manuscript was 1,100 pages. Whew. And then I went through, after about 3 months, I had 50 pages. And my agent goes, I have to send these to a publisher because I'll get you some money. And he got them to Random House. They bought it on the spot. and I got a big check from Random House. Now I was broke.
Right.
And I got, they bought it for like $700,000 right there. And so I was like, wow, it was a life changer.